Number 10. The Kraken. For centuries, sailors told tales of monstrous tentacles rising from the deep, wrapping around ships and dragging them into the dark. The creature was called the Kraken, a colossal beast said to dwell off the coasts of Norway and Greenland. Its legend spread like wildfire. Sailors described whirlpools forming where it lurked, as if the sea itself was alive. Those who claimed to have seen it spoke of eyes the size of shields and limbs, long enough to crush a warship. But here's where myth meets truth. In the 19th century, washed-up remains of enormous tentacles were discovered on beaches in Iceland and Newfoundland. Scientists later identified them as belonging to the giant squid, a real creature reaching lengths of over 40 feet. Today, with modern deep-sea cameras, we've actually captured footage of these elusive giants moving through the abyss, proving that the ancient stories weren't entirely wrong. Number 9. The Leviathan. In the ancient texts of the Hebrews, there was said to be a sea serpent so vast that it coiled around the entire ocean. They called it the Leviathan, a symbol of chaos, destruction, and divine power. Scriptures described it as armored in overlapping scales, its breath producing smoke and flame. To early civilizations, the Leviathan was not merely an animal, it was the embodiment of the sea's fury. But behind the myth lies a remarkable possibility. Throughout history, gigantic marine reptiles once ruled the oceans, creatures like Mosasaurus, which could reach lengths of over 50 feet, with jaws lined in dagger-like teeth. Many scholars believe that fossilized remains of these ancient predators may have inspired the Leviathan legend, proof that humanity once walked the shorelines of a planet filled with monsters. So perhaps the Leviathan wasn't born from imagination, but from memory, a memory carved into stone millions of years ago. Number 8. The Sea Monk. In 16th century Denmark, fishermen hauled up something that defied explanation. A strange creature said to resemble a human, dressed in the robes of a monk. Its head was elongated, its torso folded like fabric, and its hands pressed together as if in prayer. The tale of the sea monk quickly spread through Europe, baffling scholars and priests alike. Illustrations from the time show a hybrid of man and fish, a silent watcher of the sea who appeared and vanished without a trace. Some believed it was a divine messenger, others thought it a warning, a soul punished for sin, doomed to wander the waves. Centuries later, biologists revisited the story and proposed a far simpler truth. The sea monk may have been a giant ray, or possibly a squid whose cloak-like mantle had misled terrified sailors. Still, even with science offering its explanation, the image of a ghostly monk rising from the deep lingers. 7. The Sirens. Before mermaids enchanted modern myths, there were sirens, the half-bird, half-woman beings of Greek legend whose haunting songs lured sailors to their doom. Ancient poets wrote that their music was irresistible, a melody that promised beauty, love, and truth, yet always ended in death. But the sirens' legend might not be pure fantasy. Many historians connect the myth to real-world phenomena, the cries of seals or manatees echoing across rocky shores, distorted by wind and distance. Others point to early sailors hallucinating after weeks at sea, the rhythmic calls of seabirds morphing into voices in their weary minds. In a world without compasses or radios, it's easy to see how sound became myth, how the ocean itself could whisper promises no man should trust. Number 6. The Umibozu. Off the coasts of Japan, sailors once feared a shadow that rose silently from calm waters. A giant black figure with a smooth, featureless head. They called it the Umibōzu, the sea monk. According to legend, it appeared on still nights, towering over ships like a column of darkness. When spoken to, it answered in whispers that made the waves tremble. Some stories claimed it demanded offerings, and if refused, it would crush the vessel beneath its massive hands. No one truly knew what it was, but many modern researchers suspect the Umibōzu might have been inspired by encounters with giant squids, whales, or even optical illusions caused by fog and moonlight on the horizon. In ancient Japan, the ocean was seen as sacred and unpredictable, a living entity capable of anger and sorrow. The Umibōzu became the embodiment of that fear, the unknown given form. Even today, fishermen speak of sudden shapes rising in the mist, perhaps not monsters, but memories of how fragile humanity feels before an endless sea. Number 5. The Aspidochelone. In medieval bestiaries, there was said to be a creature so vast that sailors often mistook it for an island. They would drop anchor, light fires, and set up camp until the ground beneath them began to move. It was no island at all, but the Aspidochelone, a massive sea monster described as part whale, part turtle, with a shell the size of a mountain. When it dove back into the depths, entire crews were swallowed by the sea. At first glance, the story sounds impossible, yet this legend likely grew from real encounters with whales and volcanic islands. Early explorers, unfamiliar with natural phenomena, may have witnessed sperm whales surfacing or floating pumice from undersea eruptions, mistaking them for living giants. Still, the Aspidochelone captured something deeper than fear. It reflected humanity's fragile trust in the ocean's calm, because sometimes what we think is solid ground isn't. Number 4. The Cetus. In ancient Greece, the sea was home to gods and monsters alike. Among them was the Cetus, a colossal sea beast sent by Poseidon to punish kingdoms that defied him. The myth tells of Princess Andromeda, chained to the rocks as an offering to the creature, before the hero Perseus descended from the skies to strike it down. Artists depicted the Cetus as part serpent, part whale, its jaws large enough to swallow ships whole. But the Greeks weren't just dreaming of monsters. They were sailors and traders, often crossing uncharted waters where whales breached suddenly from the depths, shattering the surface with explosive force. The word Cetus would later give birth to cetacean, the family that includes whales and dolphins, showing just how blurred the line between myth and reality can be. To the ancients, the Cetus was divine punishment. To us, it's a symbol of how easily awe becomes fear when faced with something bigger than understanding. Number 3. The Ningen. In the icy waters of the Antarctic, Japanese research vessels began reporting sightings of something extraordinary, a massive, pale figure gliding beneath the waves. It was described as having human-like limbs, smooth white skin, and eyes that stared from the darkness. They called it the Ningen, which simply means human. Unlike most sea legends, the Ningen is modern. Reports began circulating in the early 2000s, fueled by alleged photos and witness accounts from crew members claiming the creature reached lengths of up to 30 meters. Skeptics quickly suggested that the sightings could be misidentified icebergs, beluga whales, or even optical distortions caused by the frigid, reflective water. But the legend persisted online, growing into one of the internet's most enduring maritime mysteries. Proof that even in an age of satellites and sonar, the ocean still keeps its secrets. If the Ningen truly exists, it may not just rewrite biology, it would remind us how much of our own planet remains uncharted. Number 2. The Qalupalik. In the icy folklore of the Inuit people, parents warned their children not to wander too close to the shore, for beneath the ice waited the Qalupalik. It was said to be a pale, green-skinned woman with long, tangled hair and a haunting hum that echoed through the cold air. She carried a pouch on her back, used to snatch away disobedient children and drag them into the freezing depths. To the Inuit, the story of the Qalupalik wasn't just a myth, it was a lesson, a way to protect the young from the dangers of the Arctic Sea. Yet, some who've lived along those coasts tell of strange cries under the ice, like the sound of a woman calling out from below. Scientifically, those eerie sounds could be explained by seal vocalizations reverberating through the frozen water. But folklore often outlives reason. Because whether real or imagined, the Qalupalik reminds us that the ocean doesn't just take life, it seduces it. Number 1. The Luska. In the warm, turquoise waters of the Caribbean, there's said to be a creature that rules the deep blue holes, vast underwater caverns that drop hundreds of feet into darkness. Locals call it the Luska, a monster said to be half shark, half octopus, and fully merciless. Fishermen have told stories of boats vanishing without a trace, sucked beneath the surface as if the sea itself had come alive. Some claim to see enormous tentacles coiling around coral formations before disappearing into the abyss. It was dismissed as island folklore until divers began encountering sudden, violent whirlpools and unexplained turbulence near blue holes in the Bahamas. Scientists now know that these whirlpools are caused by powerful tidal currents funneling through underwater caves. Yet, the Luska legend likely emerged from sightings of giant squids or large octopuses disturbed by divers. Still, to those who live by the sea, explanations don't erase experience. And when the ocean starts to boil without warning, even the skeptics look twice into the dark below.